Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we are going to be talking about all the books that I read for the month of August. So let's just jump right in. Before you guys say, hey Marcy, it looks like you forgot to do your hair today. No, I didn't. This is what we're just rolling with today because who am I lying to? This is just how I roll all the time because I hate doing my hair. So this is what we got going on. Let's just move forward. Alrighty, y'all. So for a minute there, I was a little nervous because in August we actually went on vacation, and we had not been on vacation in like 6 years, and it just presented itself where we would meet up with my brother and sister-in-law and just spend some time up in the mountains. We took it, we were there, and I was a little nervous because of everything, but I'm glad that I pushed that fear aside and was able to enjoy some time with family and obviously my husband. So with that being said, in August we had the tome topple, and do you remember that TBR video that I uploaded? I will put it up here if you haven't seen it. Go watch it, because when you see my wrap up and the books that I put on that TBR, you will see that I did not succeed in my whole master plan of getting 6 or 7 tomes read in 2 weeks. Like, that was just ridiculous. I think I would have been able to do it if it wasn't because I went on vacation and I sort of, for the month of August, just disconnected. I thought it was going to be my best reading month, and it turned out being okay because I really pushed myself in the last week of August. But it was like August 17th and I had just finished 1 book. So it was a rough month, but it turns out that I actually did pretty well for the month. And so, like I said, I was able to cram in some books towards the end of the month, and I was still able to read 9 books for the month of August, which is crazy to me because I thought I was going to come on here and be like, it was going to be like a 5-minute video, and I was like, these are the 3 books that I read for the month. No, I read 9, which is mostly my average of what I read per month. So I thought I was going to be disappointed, but I'm actually pretty happy with everything that I read. It was a pretty good reading month. I believe that everything that I read, damn it, I didn't bring my book wrap up thing, my agenda. I think that for the majority of the books, they were rated 4 or 5 stars. So pretty happy with everything that I read. So let me just show you, let me shut up and show you everything that I read. I started off the month with, what? So towards the beginning of the month, we actually had the closing of Horror in 24. So this book that I read was actually for the Horror in 24, and that is Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. I finally read this book, you guys. Sorry for the glare and the light. I finally read this book, and I liked it. I gave this 4 stars, but you know, like when you think about, actually, I don't know if you guys do wrap-ups, but as I'm sitting here doing this wrap-up, while I did like the book, I felt like it really didn't stick with me how I thought it would for 4 stars. So I'm not sure yet, but I might bring this down to a 3.5. I really liked it. I love the Hannibal Lecter story. I've only seen the movies, so I love the movies. I still do want to continue reading about, reading the series, because like I said, I do enjoy the movies, but I think this is a case where I'm going to like the movies more than what I actually like the stories. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just over the whole Hannibal Lecter story in a whole, because I was obsessed with it. Like, Hannibal Lecter was my shit when I was younger, like when I was in my early 20s. But now I'm just like, okay, what else is there? We get introduced to Hannibal Lecter in this story. But I feel like when it says we get introduced, we get like 2 minutes of Hannibal Lecter. And I guess that is an introduction, but I think that's what I really didn't like about this book is that we only get a little bit of Hannibal Lecter. So maybe when I continue on with the series, I will like it more because we do get more of him and more of his ways and his thoughts. But here we only get a little portion because Graham is actually seeking him out after putting him behind bars. He is seeking him out because he's trying to catch this other murderer, and this other murderer is like mimicking Hannibal Lecter's ways. Obviously there is more to the story than what I'm saying, but I'm sure that everybody has read this book already, so not going to talk too much more about it than, you know, it's just self-explanatory. This is where we get introduced to Hannibal Lecter, and we follow the FBI detective that put him behind bars as he's trying to catch another murderer. Like, how many times can I repeat myself? I'm a little bit rusty, you guys. I'm a little bit rusty. I'm not feeling all that well today, so I'm kind of like clouded in my memory. So that was it. This was the first book that I finished in the month of August. I have so many pre-recorded videos, which I don't know if they will make it up to the YouTube world. I am going to try to upload this one way before any of the pre-recorded ones that I have. It's been a while since I've sat in front of the camera, but we're just going to truck on. The second book that I read for the month of August, The Curse of the Pigmen by Asher Ellis. I loved this book so much. Going into this book, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I ended up loving it. The opening of this book takes place, I believe it's in the 50s. I could be completely wrong, but it's like back in the day, but I believe it was in the 50s, and we're following this kid, and it's Halloween night. So he's getting ready, or the night before Halloween night, and he's getting ready to meet up with his friends to go egging and toilet papering and all of whatever that's called. And he takes a shortcut through these woods because he wants to egg the principal's home. And he takes a shortcut through the woods because he doesn't want to run into the principal as he's coming out and seeing what's going on. And he ends up in trouble in these woods. There is this tale of these devil worshippers in the woods. And so the story develops from there, and then we move forward in time. That's just like almost like the opening story about who these people are, but we move forward in time. And so that's the prologue. Wow. So that's the prologue, and then when we move into the book that we go forward in time, we're actually following baseball player Jason Dillon, and when he moves in, he's just newly moved into Vermont, into this area, and a hurricane hits, and he ends up being without power, and a tree ends up hitting or like messing up his home. So he leaves his house in search of help for anybody that lives around there. The houses are very spaced out. They're in the woods. And so as he's going to look for help, he runs into this little girl tied down in the middle of the woods. And he's like, what is going on here? And he ends up saving her, but by saving her, he ends up being hunted or followed or tracked by these group of people that were actually using this little girl as a sacrifice. So the story develops from there. It was so fantastic. I really liked it. We actually have a side-by-side review up on the Nightworms blog for this book. I will link it down below. I think that out of everybody that read this book, I think I liked it the most. Oh, my camera just stopped recording in the middle of me talking. I don't know what I was saying about this one. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Again, if you want to see our side-by-side reviews on the Nightworms vlog, I will link that down below. I'm so out of it today. Now we're getting into the books that I read for the Tome Topple. And so the first one that I read was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I really do enjoy Donna Tartt's writing. She is an incredible writer. Her books are not going to be for everybody because they're just storytelling with really nothing going on, like nothing of excitement going on in their stories. In order to read her books, I mean, they are long. There are parts that are unnecessary, but I think I just enjoy her storytelling. I will say that The Goldfinch is much better than this book. Here, we're trying to solve a crime. Well, really, we're not trying to solve a crime, but there is a crime that has happened amongst this group of friends. It's just trying to uncover what happened to this kid. They're really not kids. They're like in their, like, maybe in between 19 to 22 years old, but they act so much older. It was incredible. I'm like, I didn't act like that when I was 19 and 20. I mean, I was 19, I was having a baby, but let's not get into that. We're listening to this, or where I read this as an audiobook. I listened to this as an audiobook. I can't talk today, I can't think. But we're ultimately following this one kid, and he's going to this college, and he has to sign up for classes, and he wants to take a Greek class. But in order to take a Greek class, he has to go speak to the professor to the professor that is over the Greek department. Actually, it's only him, and so he goes and talks to him, but the professor is like, no, my class is full. Basically, the professor has like 5 kids in the class, but he's like, I like a small class, it's full, I'm sorry. Time passes, not that much, but he is able to get into the professor's class. And once he gets into the class, the professor is actually like, you have to drop all your other classes, and this is basically going to be your schedule. So these 6 kids, 5 or 6 kids, I can't really remember right now, take all these classes together. Like, they are a group. He becomes friends with these kids. Not really friends, but he's sort of like part of their group now. I am having a hard time, like a harder time than usual with words and with like thought processes. I don't know. I woke up like messed up today, and I can't speak or make sense worse than all the other videos. Why did I choose today? I don't know. Coming upon these group of kids, something happens to one of them, and something not so very good, and there's betrayal, there's back and forth. This kid always feels like he's part of the group, but he's not. And it's just the whole story of this group of kids and this murder that has happened amongst them. It was weird. It was very weird. And at times I felt like I was losing the story a little bit. But overall, I just love Donna Tartt's writing. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. But I say that very loosely because, you know, when you hear somebody say that they gave a book 5 stars, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to read it. This book is just not going to be for everybody. I mean, give it a try if you must, but I know a friend of mine on Bookstagram, she actually DNF'd this book, and I can see why. I really enjoyed it, so there we go. Sometimes I just don't know how to finish a statement. I actually read one more book for the Tome Topple, but I finished it after the Tome Topple finished, so it will be coming up later on. So I ended up reading 2 books for Tome Topple as opposed to the 7 that I had put on my TBR. Whatever. I don't know what I was thinking. The next book I read, I have to read this title because I never know what this title is. So like nonsensical in my mind, like it just doesn't go together, so I have a really hard time even remembering the title. So I'm gonna read it off of my Goodreads. I don't have the physical copy because I still haven't received it, but I will put the cover up here. Oh, gosh, hard times. The Night Silver River Run Red. Okay, this is the 4th book in the Splatter Western series that I love so much. I love it so much. You guys know I love the series so much. I don't need to keep saying that, but I loved this one as well. This one was so good, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you. When I started reading this book, I was kind of afraid that this was going to be the book that I wasn't going to like, because just like the title, it was hard to read some of the parts of the book. Like it was kind of like hard to speak out this Western dialect, because she really dives into like how they really, you know, and the other ones you do get that, but with this one it was really hard to understand sometimes what the dialogue was. But after I got past, you know, I guess after I got used to the language and to the reading of it and getting into the nitty-gritty of the story, I loved it. Here we have a group of kids, and this traveling circus, or a freak show if you will, is coming to their town, but they know that their parents are not going to let them go to it. Some of these parents are very religious, and for whatever reason they know they're not going to be able to make it, so they decide to sneak out one night to go to see, I guess once the circus traveling circus shuts down, they're going to break in and just try to see what's in there. You know, they have like this area that's like the most disgusting things that you have ever seen, and then they have the actual like acts and all of them. So as they're trying to make it there, they actually make it, but something goes wrong and they leave screaming. As they're running away, they're being chased or followed by something else. So little do they know that as the traveling circus is coming, they're not the only group of people that are coming to the town. There is another set of people, not so very good people, coming to this town as well to like spill some blood, and they come across them. While this book is not the goriest book of the series, it does have its gore. I will say a trigger warning for baby cruelty, because when I was writing my review, I was like, she brought the gore, no holds barred. And what I meant by that is because of the baby cruelty in it. I was just like, Morgan takes the cake when it comes to like impact on that, in that sense. The things that these people do is just crazy. What these kids go through is crazy. I think this one is my favorite out of the whole series thus far, which was crazy, thinking that when I started the book I thought I wasn't gonna like it. As of before this book, my favorite one was the Magpie Coffin, but I think that one has to take second place now because I really loved where Christine Morgan took this book. I always love when there's kids in a horror novel. It gives it that coming of age feel. This is really not a coming of age story because they don't get older. You just see them at the moment. But this town and the people in the town and the traveling circus, they're just so badass. I know that I'm not making any sense or giving this book any justice. Just read the book. I really love it. Of course, this one being my favorite, do I need to say that I gave it 5 stars? If I do, there you go. I gave this book 5 stars. Next book I read was the first book in the Stacks of Strange book club. This book club is a phenomenal book club that my friend Rain started, and it is comprised of Rain, Crystal, Amy, Deja, and me. I hope I'm not missing anybody. I don't think I am missing anybody. I'm like trying to go through the people that were on the live show, although Crystal couldn't make it, but I believe it's 5 of us. So I don't know if you know, we started a book club. We had our first live show like last week. It is up on Rain's channel. I will leave that down below. But the first book that we read is Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford. This book club is just basically reading all these weird books. We are all horror lovers and we love weird books. The first book that we read before it was even a thing was Bunny. I can't sit here and tell you what I read. If you watch the live show, you will see that none of us know what we read, but somehow it worked. Here we are following, I don't even know what she is or what it is. But basically it's this daughter and father, and they are healers amongst their town, but they're not regular people. I can't tell you what they are. All I know is that the way that they cure people is with the earth and the ground, and it's just so weird. And it's just basically about Ada. Ada is the daughter, just feeling loneliness and what she would do to break that feeling of loneliness. That's basically what I took away from it. It is strange. It is weird. I ended up giving this one 4 stars just because I really liked Sue's writing style in it. And although I didn't end up really understanding what we were reading, I got the underlying tone of it. We, in that live show, we were just like, what, where, when, how, and who, because Either way, it was good. I believe this is a debut novel, and whoa. This won all kinds of awards from what I read in the back. But yeah, again, this was a really strange one, and it was the perfect book to start off the Stacks of Strange book club. The next book that I read was actually part of the Tome Topple, but like I said, I did finish it after, so that's why it's coming a little bit out of order, and that is Mckee. I finally read Mckee by Stephen King. One of my favorite things about King, and I think a lot of people can agree with me, is just how he writes friendships in books. Like, they're just some of my favorite. In Pet Sematary, the dad with the old man, I can't think of their names right now, but their friendship was just fantastic. I feel the same way about this one. I mean, even in It, they were kids, but even when they were adults, just the friendships. I just love friendships and just relationships. Lizzie's story, the husband and wife. I love how he writes relationships. And this one is no exception. Here we are following Edgar, and he has an accident one day at his job. He's wealthy, him and his family, they have money, but he ends up getting into a really bad accident at the job one day, and he loses an arm, and he's just all messed up. He ends up treating his wife really bad afterwards, and they end up splitting up. They have 2 daughters, and so to rebuild his life, he ends up moving to Florida on a beachside property. It's called the Big Pink, or he calls it the Big Pink. But there is something weird happening, something supernatural happening at this beach town or beach place. He ends up befriending this man, Wiseman, and he actually works for and takes care of the lady that owns all these properties, including the Big Pink. Something possesses Edgar one day, and he just starts drawing. And there's a significance behind these paintings and the owner of the house and the supernatural thing that's going on. This was a fantastic book. Again, the friendship between Edgar and Wiseman just took it for me. I honestly didn't know what I was getting myself into with this book because I had never read the synopsis. I didn't want to, and all I know is that I saw the beach and stuff, and I'm like, this is a summer read. I'm actually, you guys know I'm involved in the chronologically King group, or we're reading King's work in chronological order, and I completely went out of track on this one because I'm not even supposed to be reading this book. It wasn't my favorite King book, but it was a good one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book I read is actually an ebook, so I'll put the picture up here, and it was The House on Abigail Lane by Keelan Patrick Burke. I love his books. It was a while since I had read any of his works. There's still a few books that I gotta read of his. I actually downloaded like a whole series last night that I wanted to read. But The House on Abigail Lane has to do with this house. It's actually a fairly short book. I think it's like 80 or 90 pages, or maybe even less. I can't remember, but it's like a little novella, and it's about a haunted house. Basically, there is this house, and there has been disappearances in the house itself, and there comes a time where the house goes viral, and just stuff happens around this house. Keelan writes so, the word that wants to come out is beautifully, but it's not beautiful like in a poetic or lyrical kind of way. He just knows how to write, and every time I read one of his books, I'm just enthralled by it. Again, this is a book that's I believe like around 70 pages long, so I can't get that much into it other than saying that it is a haunted house kind of novel. I highly recommend it, especially if you haven't read Keelan's work before, because it is just written so well, and you can really get a taste for his writing in this book. If it's something that, you know, sometimes when you don't know an author, you just want something short to sort of get a grip of what his books are about. I actually want to reread Kin, because that was the first book that I had ever read of his, and I loved it so much. But this one was a really good time. My only complaint with this book is that I want more of this house. I want to know more details. Yeah, I don't know if it was because it was such a short book, and I love short books. I mean, you're reading a novel, a novella, and that's it. It's one and done. But something about this one just left me wanting more. I don't know if it was because of the writing, because I was interested in the house. You get so absorbed in wanting to know more of the house. There is a scene where there is somebody inside the house and he actually talks about what's happening in there and what they're seeing in there, and I was just enthralled by that part. Again, if you haven't read any of his works, please read it. I would say maybe start with this one if you like haunted houses. I don't like haunted house stories, but this one I really did enjoy. Maybe my taste is changing because I've been liking more haunted house stories. Either way, check this one out. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. We're down to the last 2 books that I read for the month. The next one is Worst Laid Plans, an anthology of vacation horror. This is, again, an anthology. It has different stories and they're all stories about people going on vacation and things going wrong, really. I'm not really big into anthologies and short story collections. I have read a few these past couple of years that have really gripped me and have really made me say, damn, I guess I like short stories more than I thought I did. Because usually when I read short stories, and I think I've said this before, but you know, Mrs. Repeater here, usually what ends up happening is that I end up liking 1 to 2 stories and then the rest just, it's just not worth it for me. But with this one, I found that it was quite the opposite. I found that I ended up liking more than I disliked. I think I disliked like 2 or 3 of these stories in here that I was just like, eh. My favorite one has been Summers with Annie. That one had me crying and just stole my heart away. I actually want to reread it because it was just so touching. It was just a deep horror story. It was just so fantastic. There's still time to get this one in. I mean, if you guys are season driven like I am, you still got a little bit of time to get in this little anthology. But if you guys are not season driven and you can read whatever whenever, I highly recommend that you read this one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I usually like to get an average of all the ratings that I give the each story and then average them up, and that's how I come up with my star rating. But for this one, I just gave it 4 stars because I just really enjoyed it. I don't know if it had to do with the fact that these were like summer vacations that we were talking about, or what it was, but it was just a good one. Okay, so this last book I'm going to talk about, I could probably talk about for hours on end. It has become my favorite book of the year. And it is none other than a YA fantasy, which is super weird because I've been so heavy into reading horror stories and I've been wanting horror more and more. But I did get an e-arc of Fable by Adrienne Young and I devoured this book in 24 hours. It was so good. It's my favorite Adrienne Young book as of yet. And I just cannot explain how I feel about this book. I was gushing about this book to my mom, to my daughter, to my husband, and actually my daughter's friend, her best friend, ended up buying the book and she started reading it today, and I just can't be happier. First off, let's talk about this cover. This book had me at the cover. Favorite cover. I want like a shelf that just includes my favorite covers ever. I just want a shelf and display them because, and this one would be right there. It's my favorite cover of the year and this is my favorite book of the year. Here we follow Fable, and she was abandoned by her dad in this really bad, like, I want to say it's an island on this very bad area, and it's called Javali. I think that's how you mention it. And she gets abandoned there at the age of 12 after the death of her mother. And her dad had this ship. He was a helmsman. And so she basically knows the ins and outs of the sea and the ship life and all of that. Her dad basically tells her, come see me if you're able to survive this. Come look for me. I think she has to wait like a few years or something, and she's able to do that, but she ends up leaving this island sooner than later because she gets into some trouble and she's afraid that they're gonna kill her. So she ends up fleeing from Javali and going to Cerros, which is where her dad is, to claim what's hers. She goes through so much. The perseverance that this girl has and the will to survive is just so amazing. I loved her tenacity and I loved her badassery. This was one of those badass characters, and Adrienne Young is so good at writing badass female characters. I just loved it. She took my heart with this character. And so she ends up going to Sarah's, like I was saying, and when she finds her dad, things don't end up being how she thought they would be. I don't know if I just love this book so much because I love the sea and anything that has to do with the water and the islands and all of that. I don't know if I loved it because of that or because of Fable or just everything put together. This was just a fantastic book, and I can't wait for book 2. This is actually going to be a duology, and I believe that the title of the second book is Namesake. I was gushing with my friend Megan over on Bookstagram about this book. I'll leave her linked down below, her Instagram, because she ended up loving this one as well, and we just can't wait for book 2. So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's talk books in the comment sections down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.